Some of the darkest secrets of the Second World War lay hidden for decades, buried beneath layers of rubble, secrecy, and fear. Today, ruins scattered across Europe still whisper stories of sinister ambition, desperate innovation, and chilling cruelty. Could one of these sites, the ruined castles, the sprawling underground tunnels, or even a long-rumored armored train, still conceal the ultimate mystery of a vanished Nazi treasure? What history has revealed so far is more than unsettling. From hidden doomsday weapons to underground laboratories and vaults of plundered art, the discoveries unearthed long after 1945 are terrifying glimpses into the regime's shadow world. This is the story of the most horrifying discoveries of Nazi Germany and the sinister truths they reveal. Deep in the dense forests of modern-day Poland lie the broken remains of one of Hitler's most secretive strongholds, the Wolf's Lair. This was no ordinary headquarters. Conceived as Adolf Hitler's main command post on the Eastern Front, the sprawling compound was a fortress camouflaged by the trees, fortified with bunkers, and threaded with an underground maze. Built for a leader consumed by paranoia, it was designed with hidden corridors, escape routes, and even explosive traps ready to obliterate the site should the enemy approach. Massive slabs of reinforced concrete still lie scattered, torn apart by explosives in 1945 when retreating German troops tried to erase the evidence of what had been built here. Perhaps the most infamous day within these walls was July 20, 1944, when Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg attempted to assassinate Hitler with a bomb hidden in a briefcase. The explosion shook the complex, but Hitler survived, and his security grew even more suffocating. Ultimately, it was Soviet troops who forced the evacuation in early 1945, and the German demolition teams who ensured only ruins remained. Today, the shattered bunkers still cast a shadow of fear across the forest. Not far away, in the Owl Mountains of Poland, another secret lurks underground. Known as the Risa Complex, it was a colossal network of tunnels, bunkers, and caverns carved out between 1943 and 1945. Thousands of concentration camp prisoners were forced to dig through solid rock in brutal conditions, carving chambers large enough to suggest a command center or perhaps something more sinister. Blast doors, ventilation systems, and rail lines point to a project meant to survive even the heaviest Allied bombardment. Yet the labyrinth was never completed. When the war ended, the tunnels stood eerily abandoned as though their creators had vanished overnight. To this day, historians debate its true purpose. Was it meant to hide leaders, house secret weapons research, or safeguard stolen treasures? The unfinished walls keep their silence. Across Germany's capital, another monumental construction stood as both shield and weapon, the Berlin Flak Towers. Built in the later years of the war, these colossal structures were designed to defend the city against relentless Allied air raids. Rising above the skyline, they were fortresses of concrete bristling with anti-aircraft guns, radar systems, and searchlights. Inside, tens of thousands of civilians found refuge, their lives spared by walls so thick that bombs left little more than scratches. Priceless artworks, too, were stored within, kept away from the fires raining down on Berlin. By 1945, the towers became last redoubts for desperate German defenders. When Soviet soldiers fought their way into the city, they encountered bunkers turned into fortresses and families who had endured the war within their depths. Today, some remain as decaying relics of an apocalyptic defense.
While the towers still loom above ground, deep below Austria, another story unfolded in the Altisee salt mine. As defeat loomed, the Nazis scrambled to hide the vast treasure of art looted from across Europe. Among the masterpieces hidden in the freezing darkness were works by Michelangelo, Vermeer, and the legendary Ghent altarpiece. Forced laborers were compelled to pack and store these treasures, risking the damp and salt that could easily destroy them. As the Allies closed in, orders were given to destroy the art rather than let it be reclaimed. Local miners, risking their lives, sabotaged the plan, ensuring that centuries of culture would not be lost forever. When Allied teams arrived, known famously as the Monuments Men, they uncovered one of the greatest caches of stolen art in history and began the painstaking task of returning it. Yet some treasures remain lost. None is more infamous than the Amber Room. Originally crafted in the 18th century as a gift to Peter the Great of Russia, this breathtaking chamber of amber panels, gold, and mirrors was dismantled and stolen by the Nazis in 1941. It was installed in Königsberg Castle, and then, like smoke, it vanished. Some claim it was destroyed in Allied bombing. Others insist it was hidden in a secret bunker or loaded aboard a ship that sank beneath the Baltic Sea. Over time, legends grew darker. Talk of a curse haunted treasure hunters, some of whom met untimely deaths while pursuing it. Despite decades of searching in tunnels, mines, and lakes, the original Amber Room has never been found. Only a painstaking reconstruction in Russia stands today, while the fate of the real masterpiece remains one of the war's most enduring mysteries. In the town of Haigerloch, Germany, a different secret lay buried. Not treasure, but the terrifying pursuit of nuclear power. Here, in the cellar of a brewery, German physicists, including Werner Heisenberg, constructed a crude reactor, suspending uranium cubes in heavy water. Their goal was to create a chain reaction and, ultimately, a weapon that could have changed the war. Fortunately, sabotage of heavy water supplies from Norway and relentless Allied pressure stalled their progress. In 1945, U.S. forces discovered the experimental reactor still intact, a chilling reminder of how close the Nazis may have come. Today, the cave remains a museum, its relics a warning of a nuclear nightmare narrowly avoided. Elsewhere, greed and cruelty surfaced together. In April 1945, American troops stormed into the Merkur salt mine in Germany, only to uncover staggering wealth. Gold bars, bags of coins, stacks of currency, and looted art. Yet among the riches were darker finds, personal belongings taken from Holocaust victims, evidence of plunder woven into genocide. Eisenhower himself came to see the discovery, and photographs taken here later served as damning evidence in the trials of Nazi leaders. At sea, too, sinister discoveries awaited. In 1945, U-86-4 set sail for Japan, carrying steel, aircraft parts, and mercury intended to aid Axis partners in building advanced weapons. But it never arrived. Hunted and sunk by a British submarine off Norway, the wreck remained hidden until discovered decades later. When it was found, it revealed a new horror: ruptured containers leaking mercury into the sea, poisoning the waters, and forcing modern authorities to devise ways to contain a toxic legacy of war.
Legends, too, refuse to die. In Poland, rumors persist of a Nazi gold train hidden in tunnels near the town of Walbrik. Believed to carry gold, jewelry, or stolen industrial materials, the armored train was said to have been buried by retreating Germans. In 2015, new claims of its discovery reignited the frenzy, bringing treasure hunters, ground-penetrating radar, and global headlines. No proof has been uncovered, but the myth continues, fueling imaginations and suspicions that somewhere beneath the Polish soil lies a fortune lost to history. Some stories drift further into the realm of mystery. Whispers persist of Digloka, or the Bell, a supposed secret weapon, perhaps a machine involving strange metals and anti-gravity experiments. While historians caution that the evidence is slim, the myth endures, tied to rumors of Nazi UFOs and exotic science. Whether it was fact or folklore, it reminds us of the desperation in those final years when fantastical projects reflected both ambition and madness. What was not fantasy was the Horten Ho 2029, a jet-powered flying wing that seemed decades ahead of its time. Sleek, fast, and designed with stealth-like qualities, it foreshadowed the design of modern bombers. Only prototypes were completed, but when American forces captured one in 1945, they took possession of technology that would influence aviation long after the war. At Peenemünde, on Germany's Baltic coast, the Nazis tested the V-weapons, the V-1 flying bomb, and the V-2 rocket. Intended as vengeance weapons, they rained destruction on London and Antwerp, striking without warning. The technological achievement was undeniable, but so was the cruelty. These rockets were built in underground factories by slave laborers who suffered and died in their thousands. When the Allies seized the site, they also seized the scientists, many of whom later helped launch the space age. In the Channel Islands, the only British territory occupied during the war, the Germans built bunkers, tunnels, and fortresses, turning idyllic landscapes into prisons of steel and concrete. Thousands of laborers carved defenses that were abandoned when the war ended, leaving behind silent, damp corridors still scattered across the islands today. In Frankfurt and countless other cities, Allied forces uncovered caches of stolen valuables, jewelry, coins, even gold teeth ripped from victims. Each find told not of wealth, but of the cruelty and systematic theft that funded the Nazi war machine. For survivors, restitution was slow and incomplete, with many items never returned to families who had perished. High in the Bavarian Alps, Hitler's Eagle's Nest stood as a mountaintop retreat. Built as a birthday gift, it was an engineering marvel with a brass elevator hidden inside the mountain itself. When Allied troops arrived, they found a luxurious hideaway, untouched by the suffering that had engulfed Europe. Today, it is a tourist site, a place where breathtaking views collide with chilling history. In the Harz Mountains, other tunnels hid underground munitions factories where laborers churned out weapons until the very last days of the war. In Nordhausen, the Nordalbau Dora camp forced prisoners into hellish conditions, constructing V2 rockets in subterranean caverns. When American soldiers liberated the site, they were horrified by the corpses, the mass graves, and the suffering that had been hidden underground. The rockets that rained terror on Allied cities had been built on the backs of lives destroyed. Operation Bernhard revealed yet another kind of warfare. In this secret plot, concentration camp prisoners were forced to produce counterfeit British banknotes of such quality that they could destabilize the British economy. Millions were printed, some entering circulation. At war end, crates of forgeries were found dumped in lakes, along with printing plates and records. The plan had failed, but it showed the breadth of Nazi ambition. Even currency itself became a weapon. And then there was Berlin. Beneath the ruins of the Reich Chancellery, the Führer bunker became Hitler's last refuge. Built in stages, reinforced with thick concrete and connected by narrow passageways, it was here that the last desperate days of the regime unfolded. Maps on the walls charted divisions that no longer existed. Ministers argued, soldiers despaired, and Hitler, increasingly detached from reality, gave orders that could not be carried out. In late April 1945, as Soviet artillery closed in, he married Eva Braun in a short ceremony. Days later, both took their own lives. Others followed, burning documents, destroying evidence, and preparing for the inevitable. When Soviet troops finally reached the bunker, they found empty corridors, scattered papers, and the last remnants of a regime consumed by its own collapse. Today, the site lies buried beneath apartment blocks and parking lots, marked only by a discreet plaque. Yet its story remains one of the most haunting of all. From underground reactors to hidden art, from mountains carved into fortresses to salt mines filled with plunder, the legacy of these discoveries is not just the secrets they concealed, but the truths they revealed. They remind us that behind the military campaigns and the battles was an empire of fear, greed, and ambition. The ruins that remain, silent, broken, and half-forgotten, are testaments to what humanity can build and to what it must never repeat.